Well, last season, the SEC put 14 teams into the March Madness NCAA Big Dance. Hands down, the greatest conference and a record. This year, might not be the best overall conference top to bottom, but it did give us the best game of the season, hands down. Alabama-Arkansas, top 25 battle, double overtime, 117-115 in an instant classic as Alabama wins again at home against John Calipari and the Arkansas Razorbacks. Welcome to Southeast Sports Plus. I'm Gerhard Mathangani, joined by Patrick Walsh. Patrick, you and I were texting during this, especially when it went to overtime, then it went to double overtime, and it just felt like if you were just a college basketball fan, this was the kind of game you wanted.
Well, I'll expand it for a second and go, last night is the night that you just love to see if you're a college basketball fan.
100%.
I mean, we had Creighton upset UConn.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody really saw that coming.
Right.
We talked about yesterday, unfortunately, and I'm sorry, Mississippi State. I didn't really give you a chance against Auburn, but Josh Hubbard just turns into Superman, and Mississippi State hands Auburn their 5th loss in a row. And then you have this game, which I fully agree with you. This is probably the best game of the season to this point for sure. It might go down as the best game of the season once it's all said and done. But, I mean, you had absolutely everything in this game. You had, honestly, pretty decent defense. I know the final score doesn't really indicate that. But, again, it was a 50-minute game because there was 2 overtimes, 117 to 115. You had good scoring. That guy right there, Labaron Philon, we've been talking about him all year. He's kind of been that leader for Alabama. He really stepped up last night, and I'm still speechless at how good this game actually was and how much offense there actually was in it.
Yeah, this is one of those few games where you see the point spread, then you see the total, and you know it's going to be a high-scoring game. The total ended up landing 184-185, so it was you expected the game to be in the 90s. First half, it started seeming to go that way. Then you add to the fact that you have 2 of probably the best guards in the conference, and Darius Acuff and Labaron Philon. Both those guys lived up to the billing. It's just so few times that the game lives up to the hype, and then the stars also play and live up to the hype. And at the end, it felt like a game that you didn't want any team to lose because I felt bad for Darius Acuff. He scores almost 50 points in a losing effort. Labaron Philon, it's 32 points and an unbelievable game there as well. So you had a lot of back and forth. I think this game came down to the margins. It came down to, the lack of depth for Arkansas. It came down to the playmaking from Alabama and being able to get another star, some of their points included. We'll focus on Bama first, then shift over to Arkansas. But it just seemed to me that this game, overall, if you just love college basketball and you're not an NBA fan, this gave you the closest thing to the NBA, but with the intensity that you love in college basketball.
Right, and I think, as I've said on the show a few times, Alabama is probably as close to an NBA style. I'm not saying talent-wise that they're the equivalent of the NBA, but the style of offense that Nate Oates runs, it's the closest thing to the NBA that we see. And we talk about Labaron Philon. He had those 35 points, a new career high, dished out 7 assists as well. And it was just such a monster game. But as you mentioned, it almost feels like sometimes we hype up these matchups. We were hyping this one up pretty big yesterday. Top 25 matchup, 2 great guards coming into this game. Sometimes they can be duds.
Yes.
Sometimes, it's just so one-sided that it's like, man, why did we spend all this time hyping up this game?
Right.
For it to just end like this. But I want to go back to something that I was talking about when Charles Bediako was deemed ineligible to continue. And it almost might have been a blessing in disguise for some of these players because I talk about stunting growth of some of these players. And one guy that really grew last night was Aiden Terrell.
Yeah.
And I think with Bediako not being on the floor anymore, it opens up a spot for Sherrell to have a larger role for this team.
Right. And he certainly lived up to the billing. And there you see his numbers, 26 points on 10 of 13 from the floor, added 13 rebounds in the game. And I think you're right. It's been a while since we heard the name Charles Bediako. The thing is about Alabama, it was so controversial just because of his situation and the way the SEC talked about it and whatnot. But the slow undercurrent, I think you're right. The undercurrent underneath all of it was the fact that it was going to give another opportunity for a guy to step in and really play his role. Because Alabama is guard led. I mean, of course you have Labaron Philon, Aiden Holloway's always been really good. Then you even have some chip-in guys like Houston Millett and some of the other guys that have come in and really added scoring around. But you need a big man presence, and you need to have at least a little bit of, hey, when we need a rebound, who can we go to? Because that was Alabama's problem at the beginning of the season. When they lost to Purdue, what was the problem? Rebounding. When they lost the early games, the issue was always rebounding. Mm-hmm. It seems to me that they have found the answer off that, and maybe because, like you said, Bediako's not there anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, any time that you can grab 13-plus rebounds. I mean, we just talked yesterday about Medina Okot grabbing 17 rebounds against LSU.
Right.
And, again, Arkansas, like Alabama, is guard heavy with Acuff and what he's been able to do. But honestly, what I was more impressed with was it almost felt like Billy Richmond and Labaron Philon were kind of going back and forth. And it was just such a fun matchup to watch because Billy Richmond might be the SEC Defensive Player of the Year.
For sure, yeah.
And then you're going up against Labaron Philon, who I don't know if he truly has a case for Player of the Year just because the guy on the other side last night might actually take it from him. And we were talking about how it sometimes, or it usually goes to the leading scorer in the conference, but I almost feel like, and again, we'll get to Acuff here in a minute, but it just felt like one of those evenly balanced matchups. Yeah, Labaron had 35-plus points,
right?
But I mean, up until he ended up fouling out, I mean, Billy Richmond had a really nice game as well.
Yep, yeah, he certainly did. And you mentioned the fouling out. That was part of the problem for Arkansas late in the game. And as that game wore down, it felt like, hey, John Calipari's bench is not that long. And they needed to go to some other players that hadn't played very much. And Coach Oates saw that in his team and talked about the conditioning for his guys and maybe where he thought they had an advantage against a very thin Razorback squad.
I thought, like you said, down 14 with some time left in the second half, I think we cut it. It was 13 points at like 12:30, I believe, and then in less than 4 minutes, we went go on a 15-2 run to tie it up at 77 all. And we told these guys, like, they don't have much depth. We need to crack them. We didn't crack them in the first half. Credit to them. They kind of cracked us, to be honest with you. But we were able to kind of crack them there in the middle of the second half, and then it was a dogfight from there. But to go to the off season, we're not big on going to the track and just running guys' legs out. We play a lot of basketball, with our time that we've got, and we tell them that, like, the best way to get in, and basketball is different than almost any other sport. Like, you can run miles, you can run sprints. Like, basketball's sprint, stop, jump, slide. It's all kinds of different stuff. The best way to get in basketball shape is to play basketball at a really high level and really intense for longer periods of time. So that's how we get in shape in the summer, and we practice hard. Not at this point of the year with all the injuries we've had, but all summer, all fall. Like, we practice hard, and we get after them, and we put time in, and it's good to know we're in pretty good shape. I mean, Aiden Sherrill, 7-foot center. It goes 38 and a half minutes tonight, so give him a lot of credit. And our guys were disciplined, I thought, with not fouling. We knew that they were a little foul prone, which is typical of the athletes they have. I mean, they're able to get off the ground, go block some shots. We're able to foul Pringle out in 20. I mean, he played here. We kind of know his tendencies. Elite shot blocker, but also very jumpy to get him. So, we just told our guy, get in there, you got to use shot fakes on these guys, because if you don't, it's going to be a layup on the other end.
So Alabama's only lost one game in the month of February. Let me give you their point total so far. Scored 100 in a winning effort against Texas A&M, 96 against Auburn, 93 against Ole Miss, 89 against South Carolina, and, of course, 117 points in double overtime in the game last night. Even at the end of regulation, it was above 90. So this is it seems to me like a team, outside of that Florida loss where they lost 100-77, it seems to me like a team that is almost at just the right time. And they have a few games left at the end of the season where they could even make a little bit more of a run.
Yeah, and I almost feel like I don't want to say this team is kind of flying under the radar right now, but I feel like that little slip up in the middle of the SEC slate kind of has this team a little bit underrated, in my opinion. I mean, they've started to rattle off 5 straight wins here, but it's sometimes also for this team, it's not the superstars that are showing up. I mean, you brought up Houston Millett. He only scored 6 points last night. He made 2 3-pointers.
Huge ones,
but they were the biggest 3-pointers you could have probably asked for. So, I mean, when things are clicking, they're clicking. But you've got LSU this weekend. I don't even want to say anything is a sure win anymore because I kind of got burned by saying that yesterday. But I'm definitely not going to say that about Mississippi State.
Yeah.
And then you can have your get-back game against Tennessee. Then you've got Georgia and Auburn to end the year. I wouldn't be shocked at all if this team ended the regular season on what would be a 10-game win streak, and maybe then some people will start to turn their attention back to the Tide. But I almost feel like this team does better when nobody's really caring about them.
Yeah, because, I mean, Nate Oates brings that whole hard hat mentality. He wants his team to be underdogs, but they don't really play like underdogs. They play like the team that shoots the best from a three-point perspective. They're the best three-point shooting team in America. I think when they're completely healthy, which was what we're seeing now, as healthy as they have been in a really long time, and without the distractions off the court with the Bediako situation, this is the best that they could be. And they knocked off another team where when they are at their best in the Arkansas Razorbacks, we'll get to them in a second, that to me is a recipe for I was going to say a deep tournament run. It's just all the makings of what you would want from a team that can make a deep tournament run. It reminds me a little bit, and this is not really an apples-to-apples comparison, reminds me a little bit of like when those Tom Izzo teams back in the day, when they would just find their stride. It just felt like, hey, where they really got rolling in the middle of February, towards the end of February. They played to their identity, and then they made those Final Four runs. That's what it seems like to me. Bama's a little bit flashier than those teams, especially when they're rolling. But man, I'll tell you what, I was just a huge if you're a fan of college basketball, that's exactly what you wanted to see.
I'll say this, and this is obviously the biggest if in all of sports because you can't ever predict injuries.
Yeah.
When this team is healthy,
when
this team is healthy, they can compete with anybody in the country. If this team was fully healthy year-round, they're a surefire top 3 seed in March. In my opinion. But their inability to stay on the court, it's not as bad as some players. Darren Peterson, I'm talking about you over there in Kansas with your cramping, and then you got flu symptoms, but you miss a bajillion games. When this team is fully healthy, they can beat Florida. They can beat Michigan. They could beat Arizona. I'm sure they're looking back at that game and like, man, if we didn't have such a terrible second half, we probably would have been able to win that game. But it's just time will tell with this team and if they can hold up. But it's going to be, if they don't hold up and it's an early exit in March, it's going to be one of those seasons where if you're an Alabama fan, you're just thinking, what if? Because the talent is totally there.
It's totally there, and they play the style that Nate Oates wants them to play. And everybody in college basketball is just knocking on wood, crossing their fingers. Everybody stays healthy. We've seen a rash of injuries here over the last few weeks. That includes Caleb Wilson out of North Carolina. That includes JT Toppin, who got injured yesterday as well. So everybody wants them to stay healthy. Speaking of superstars, let's flip to the Arkansas side because this was an epic performance by Darius Acuff. And I foolishly said last week, move over Darius Acuff. You're not going to win SEC Freshman of the Year. He might not win SEC Freshman of the Year because he might win the Player of the Year. He absolutely played like a true superstar. And we've talked with Courtney Mims about this guy, about what John Calipari likes out of this guy. He just seems to play with an even-keeled approach. 49 points, 1 point shy of 50 points. You see the record there, the most points in an SEC game in Arkansas history. He was just unbelievable yesterday.
I mean, the records don't even stop there. It's the most points by an Arkansas freshman in program history. Again, 49 points, only shot the ball 27 times, too. It's not like he shot it 30-plus times and scored 49 points. 11 of 12 at the line is second most points in Arkansas history. If he hit that three-pointer there at the end, it would have been the most in Arkansas history. But I'm very tempted right now to make a controversial take.
Okay.
I almost want to say he's the best guard that Calipari's ever coached.
Ooh.
Because do you remember SGA, Tyrese Maxey, and some of these other guys?
I was literally about to say there's a lot of guys that ended up shining in the NBA, but I don't really remember their dominance in the college ranks. I'm trying to think. Devin Booker, maybe. I remember him at Kentucky. Derrick Rose at Memphis.
But I mean, you're talking about a dude who's a freshman,
right?
Who is on the road at Coleman Coliseum. Not a lot of players have too much success there.
Right.
It's never like you don't see almost 50 burgers every night.
Right.
I just don't know if I can. That might be recency bias.
But I do think. I mean, I was trying to rattle off some people in my head, but I think you bring up a good point that I think a lot of our views are clouded by what we saw them do in the pros. Like we saw SGA shine in the pros.
Yeah, like take away pros in general,
right?
Because Cal is not coaching these guys in the professional leagues.
Yeah, right. For the most part, it's 6 months.
This take is specifically college basketball only. So these guards that were at Kentucky, and then, I mean, the only guard he really coached last year was Boogie Fland, and we see how he's been panning out there in Florida. So, like, I just don't know.
I think it's a strong point.
You could definitely make a case for it.
You could definitely make an argument for it. And it looks like he is ascending right now as one of the best players, if not the best player in the country right now. John Calipari did speak after the game. We talked about the foul trouble. 3 Arkansas guys fouled out of this basketball game. That bench was so very thin, especially late. Let's hear from Coach Cal on foul trouble.
I don't want to talk about the fouls and all that because I don't want to get in trouble. Give Alabama credit. They fought till the very end. Give my team credit. They fought. I told them after, I'm proud of you. Fought. Never gave up. We had a chance right down to the end. And you have a guy, we keep saying, he likes going left. And he kept going left. And he kept going left. And they kept calling fouls. And he kept going left. So, we know they tried to switch up the pick and roll stuff to slow Darius down. I think he had 50, so I don't, they did some good stuff, and we had to adjust, and we had to put Billy and stuff, and, but fouling guys out, that's going to hurt this team. And you know that, everybody watching the game, doing the game. You call a lot of fouls like that in a rough game. We're going to be down to 2 and the rent is due.
He's always so good for a natural quote. One correction here. Patrick actually corrected me. I was looking at the starters. 3 starters fouled out, but 4 total players fouling out in the game. You hardly see multiple starters foul out or multiple players foul out in college basketball games. It's really rare to see just because a lot of times they're on minutes restrictions and stuff like that. But I was also listening to our good friend Jim Dunaway. They have a show that they do in the morning, and one of the segments that I just got a chance to hear, obviously Jim Dunaway's he's not a basketball historian, but he's been around for a very long time, and he said this is one of, if not the best performance he has seen, up there with Pistol Pete. When LSU came to Alabama, I think he dropped, it's like 2 good games. I think he dropped 60-plus once and 57 in another game. He said basically shy of those performances, and probably with the degree of difficulty of the guards this day and age might be as good or better than some of those performances. I mean, shout out Darius Acuff, because that was something that if you're a fan, even if you're a fan of Alabama, you walked away from that game saying, wow, I just watched one of the best performances I've seen in college hoops.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely can't hate on the guy after that, because all you can do is just respect it. I mean, pretty much averaged a point a minute, ended up playing 50 minutes. He played every single minute of the game. So I hope he got the Epsom salt bath going last night. I hope he got the nice cold tub after the game. Because him and Brazil were the only 2 guys that started that didn't end up fouling out, and they played a combined 97 minutes.
Wow.
Pringle fouled out in the first overtime. I think Malik Thomas and Billy Richmond both fouled out in the second overtime. But, I mean, it definitely showed up in the end. But you have to give Arkansas all the credit in the world, just basically holding on for dear life in that one. When you, as you mentioned, you had 2 guys that came in, I think played maybe a combined 16 minutes all season. I mean, these are guys that are probably barely scholarship players. You're almost getting to the walk-ons at this point.
Right.
And you could definitely tell that they were kind of nervous out there. So it was really, it was pretty easy to defend them because you knew it was going to be in Acuff's hands. And when it wasn't, he was always giving it up to Brazil. I remember the nice slam down low in double overtime last night for Brazil. So, I mean, once you get down to that, it's just you need a miracle. Mm-hmm. And they almost got it from Acuff in the end. But I would say I don't think anybody's topping this performance. Josh Hubbard almost did last night.
Oh, yeah, he almost did.
Yeah. And nobody's really talking about it, but he almost did. But nobody is eclipsing 50 points this season.
I was literally about to say, there's very few things I can assure. But I do think next Monday when the press release comes out from the SEC that Darius Acuff is going to be the player of the week. Now, something could happen crazy on Saturday. And
he could score 2 points.
Yeah, right, exactly. Or
no,
actually goes off or whoever.
He has to have it locked up.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't care if he doesn't play on Saturday. He's got to lock it up.
Right. I mean, the only other case you can make is Hubbard, who had a phenomenal game against
Hubbard would
Auburn.
have to score 40 again.
Right. If he does, then that could be it. But considering everything, I think he's a shoe-in, a lock for SEC Player of the Week.